The time is now 7:02 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel.
Here.
Pro Tem Knott.
Here.
Trustee Britnall.
Here.
Trustee Klassen.
Here.
Trustee Flores. Trustee Henderham.
Here.
Trustee Seifert.
Here.
All right, may we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, be seated. All right, the first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make public comments on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did we have any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, we did not today, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I do not show any raised hands.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we have anybody signed in.
Nope, nobody
Okay,
signed
all right.
in.
And we've got nobody signed in with the chambers. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the August 8th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. Would anyone like to discuss any of those or make a motion?
No discussion for me.
No.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Knott to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Trustee Seifert. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with any agenda items tonight?
Yes, sir.
None for me.
I've got none. How about any agenda changes for staff or the board?
None here.
Nothing. None here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next up then is the Journey Home Animal Care Center fundraiser and funding support, and I will turn this over to Town Clerk McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who we all have with us tonight. I saw Callie come in and maybe Heather.
Heather, yeah.
They would like to speak with you on, give you kind of an update on their new facility and talk about an upcoming fundraiser that they would like the board to maybe anticipate donating towards. So I will let you take it over, Heather.
Okay. I'm gonna just kind of go over the packet that we sent you with the slides, and I just wanted to tell you that we've been in our, thank you for allowing us to come and speak with you tonight, and that we've been in our building. It'll be a year, December 15th, and it's amazing. And if you haven't came for a tour, I would encourage you to stop by, reach out to Callie or I. We would love to show you around. It's been a true blessing for the animals, for the community, for the staff, and we are so grateful for it and been able to expand many of our programs and care for more animals. In the packet, you will have a page about us. I'll just go over really quickly that we used to be under the city of Rifle, and we were limited on the number of animals we could take in. And as you know, we were in that the older building, and was getting ready to close down. And in 1999, a group called Friends of the Rifle Animal Shelter decided to raise money and to renovate it, and they did. And in 2012. Friends of the Rifle Animal Shelter took over operations and contracted with the city of Rifle to house animals. And we have expanded those contracts with the town of Newcastle, the town of Silt, the town of Parachute, and we continue with the city of Rifle. And And then in 2017, we started a capital campaign and for a new building. And in 2021, we moved into our new building. And it's been, like I said, it's been wonderful. And we continue to offer, the second page is we continue to offer low-cost spay, neuter, and vaccines. We do adoption. Then we are able to expand. We started with humane education in our old building, but we've been able to really expand it. And then rehoming animals that families can't continue to keep. And with the new building, we've been able to have, we've received a grant to hire a behaviorist that's known statewide to come in and help us with some behavior and enrichment for our shelter animals. And also we're hoping to expand it to be able to help community members with behavior in their pets. We were able to do a youth summer camp. We had kids 8 to 10, and I think it was 11 to 13 that came to the camp. They came for 2 days. It was amazing. They did animal activities. They read a book. They helped with the animals. We also are doing a junior volunteer program. This is for high school students where they have to actually apply. They had to fill out an application, get letters of recommendation. They had to so they really had to work to be chosen to be a part of it. And they've came and they've done days throughout the summer, and now they're able to volunteer on their own, and we will be opening up again to another set of junior volunteers. We're doing a program called 30 on Thursday where we have lunch provided, and the community members are welcome to come and learn about different things. We've done like traveling with your pet, vaccines. We're gonna have one on foster care at the end of this month, and so it's been something that community members have been showing up to, and we are really excited to keep educating our community. We've offered free rabies vaccines, and then we've been able to grow our staff and hire more people, and then we've been able to do some veterinary partner growth with our new clinic. Instead of taking our animals to get a treatment for, recently we had some animals needing an echocardiogram for their heart, and we were able to have them come into the shelter and do it, and which reduced cost. And then we had an orthopedic come in and do surgery on a dog instead of having to pay for it to go there. And we're hoping to be able to expand that to community members who are needing medical care for their animals in the near future. So that's just a quick overview of Journey Home and what we've been able to do this past year. In your packet, you also have our annual report for 2021, and it goes over, lists our volunteers and fosters. It again goes over some of our community programs and services. It's what our capacity, what we've been able to do. It has some pictures of adoption. It goes over our Humane Heroes, which are donors that donate to us, and then we have our Circle of Heroes, and then lists of our Journey Home donors. And at the end, we have a copy of our newsletter and businesses that have helped. And then we also have our impact statement, which is what we were able to do in 2021. We were able to adopt out 1,004 animals. We were able to spay and neuter 680 community animals. We took in and cared for 1,466 animals, and then we transferred in 224 animals from overcrowded shelters. Our organization works really hard on trying to get animals back to their original owner, and we have a return to owner rate of 56.5%. That's above the national average. And then we also were able to vaccinate 652 community animals. So we've been very, very successful. And then last in that packet, I've attached just what veterinary services we currently are offering and the fees that we are charging the public for these services. They are very reduced, and we are we're the only low-cost spay-neuter vaccine clinic on the western side of the state. So it's definitely something community members really utilize and appreciate. So I don't know, I'm gonna open it up and see if you guys have any questions, but I wanted to, what I am approaching you guys about is operating funding for 2023. And I wanted to request funding of $5,000 to help with operations for next year, to expand these programs, to expand the resources we can offer to the community. And then Callie wanted to talk a little bit about Laugh Your Tail Off, which is a big fundraiser. It's our big annual fundraiser, and we're going to be having it in October, and we would like to see you guys be able to join or sponsor that event. So I don't know if you want to see if anybody has any questions, or if you want to let Callie go over that, and then we can answer questions or at the end.
Let's just have Callie jump in here, and then we'll see if we have any questions at the end.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Like Heather said, thank you for having us tonight. Laugh Your Tail Off is a lot of fun if you haven't been. It's one of our favorite events to plan and also to just be a part of. And as she said, we really would love to just have representation there from our local municipalities that support our organization. So the event will be on Saturday, October 8th, and we hold it up at the airport here in Rifle. Atlantic Aviation donates their hangar to us, and so we're able to utilize that. This year, we have two comedians from Comedy Works. They hand select us, also work with us for a significant discount. And this year, they have also offered us an opening act, which is super cool. That's a new change to the event this year. Miners Claim, right there in Silt, they'll be catering again. We've been working with Christian for many years now, and he's been a great support. We have opened this event up to the community, so which normally it is a closed off event. We offer a few very minimal tickets, but it's usually closed off to corporate sponsorships. This year we're opening it up early. We're expanding, trying to get more people there. So we're hoping to have around 500 people at the event throughout the valley and beyond. So as I said before, we would love to have you guys there. I've included the poster and then also that sponsorship form for you guys to review as well. And along with that, any sponsorships there, of course, is representation at the event. So just take a look at that and let me know your thoughts. But like I said, we would really love to have you guys there. And all the funding from that event goes directly to support our operations as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Guess I'll open it up to questions, comments by the board.
None here.
Hey, we should be one of the sponsors here. We should just maybe decide on how much we want to spend on it. But I mean, I think that our town benefits from that, right?
I've benefited. I got 2 dogs at the house I got from there, and they're both great. So
Yeah, you bet, for sure.
Yeah, me too. My pets are from there.
Yeah.
It's a great thing for our community.
he is.
And then I'm just out of curiosity, based on what you guys were saying. So, as far as the request, are you guys asking for $5,000 towards your 2023 operating costs in addition to the possible sponsorship on the Laugh Your Tail Off?
That was my
Yes.
understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do it at 2 different times, and they suggested that we just come and do it all at one time.
Gotcha.
So, since we didn't reach out to you for operations, we thought for 2022, thought we would approach you about Laugh Your Tail Off and see if you'd be interested in joining us.
Got it. Yeah. So I would be a supporter of one of the sponsorships for the Laugh Your Tail Off. So
And I think what we could do is we could discuss during budget how much we wanna do as far as operating for next year possibly, if we wanna do something in addition to, we have a chance to look at that. Unless we wanna make that decision tonight, but.
I think it's a good time to look at it with budget, since we're coming up with that, and see what we can do for 2023. I would be in favor of maybe doing just the classic sponsor this year
$1,000.
for the laugh and
Yeah.
tail off, and then see if we can get 6 people that would like to take those tickets. And
Sure.
I did have one question in regards to the construction of the new building. Just wondering if that project came in on budget, over budget, in time. Just a little bit about that whole scenario.
So it did happen on time. We broke ground in January of 2021, and we were able to move in December. So that definitely stayed on track. We did go over budget about 500,000, just due to supplies going up. Everything went up than we received estimates for. I do know that, Tally Ho told us we were very lucky to have bought our building when we did, because someone ordered a building pretty close to the same size as ours, and it went up $80,000. So we did end up going over budget about 500,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were still able to cover that cost with your fundraising efforts, or did that come out of your operating expenses?
Well, we covered it. We still have pledges coming in, and we've still been working on trying to finalize the last little bit of what we need to fundraise. But we did have to take out, took out a loan. We took out a loan to, the pledges had up to 5 years. People could pledge out 5 years. So why those pledges are still coming in, we took a loan to cover those, and then to cover that remainder part. We got pretty far in the project with our fundraising, the funds that we had fundraised with, and before we had to even touch the loan. So
Okay.
we do have a little bit of a loan that we're working on paying off.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have adopted shelter license plates on my Honda, so I'm all in favor of supporting this, and I kind of, with Mayor Reichel and the $1,000, and I would also support some sort of, amount for their 2023 budget season.
Cool. Me too. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to have the town of Silt be a classic sponsor at the Journey Home Animal Care Shelter Laugh Your Tail Off for 2022
Okay. We got
for
a
$1,000.
second. So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem not to be a classic sponsor for the 2022 Laugh Your Tail Off fundraiser for Journey Home Animal Care Center in the amount of $1,000, and that was seconded by Trustee Hanrahan. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion passes unanimously. On that line, does anyone have a specific fund we want to take that out of, or are we just looking at general fund?
I was thinking it would go out of the general fund.
Okay. Just so staff knows where to pull that money out of, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then we will discuss the 2023 donation during our budget cycle that we're going through at this current time.
All right.
Okay?
Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor?
guys.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Chief Kite. I definitely support the animal shelter and anything we could do for them. They've been wonderful working with us. With strays and animals that we picked up. I've not seen the numbers yet this year, but I know it's gone above what we've done last year. So any help that we could move forward in the 23 budget to help them, I'm all for.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay.
I use them all the time. They're great. They're great for seniors like us. The prices are just real reasonable.
Real reasonable.
So I use them all the time. I go to that event too every year. So it's a great deal, so I'm
Right.
all for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Heather and Callie, for joining us tonight. And
Thank you.
we'll look forward to working with you guys in the future.
All right, thank you. And again, if any of you are ever interested in visiting the tour or visiting the shelter and getting a tour, please reach out to us. We would be happy. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda would be resolution number 15, series 2022. A resolution approving the special use permit to allow for a brewery and associated bottling packaging facility at Unit 4, 401 Main Street within town of Silt, Colorado. This is a public hearing, and we have our applicant here with us tonight, and I will turn this over to Planner Chan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sheila, I'm going to try to take over the screen from you. And can everybody host disabled participant screen sharing, okay? All right, now I'll try. Can everybody hear me? Alton?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll start with the location map. Anyway, you have met, or most of you have met, Richard Lynch, who is within All In Brewing Company. And I'm not sure what the DBA is, but you can see from the shirt, he's trying to open Brew Zone Silt. And this was approved for 7th and Main last fall. For reasons that didn't come to pass, he has since been looking for other establishments, and he has found one at 401 Main Street. That's the Silt Building LLC condominium. And if you look at the location map, it's right here. I have my cursor over it. And the brew zone is about in the middle of the site. And this is 3rd Street. We have 6 and 24, or Main, right here. And this is 5th Street. 4th Street does not proceed across the way. I'll get to the resolution later. This is in the B2 zone district, and a small brewing company would be allowed by special use permit only. That's an action taken by the Board of Trustees after a public hearing and review by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission looked at this application at their August 2nd meeting, and they recommend that you approve it with conditions that were listed in the staff report and are also listed in the resolution. It's a pretty big site. It's 1.5 acres in size. The building itself is 25,000 square feet. It was built in 1974 according to assessor records. All In Brewing would like to lease 3,200 square feet in that, in basically the middle of the building from front to back. And they also will be doing, or proposing to do, a patio in the back. That's on the south side of the building. The entire area is 40 feet by 30 feet for that outside. Have a site plan in there for you. Part of that area is for the food truck itself. And there is a picture in the food truck in that, in the packet. Applicant intends to operate the beginning 5, 6, maybe 7 days a week, or excuse me, 4 to 5, eventually 5 to 7 days a week. Right now he's proposing to stop serving at 9 or 10 o'clock. That building, a lot of that was built before zoning, and the property was condominiumized in 2002 into 10 units by, I believe, a previous owner. There are a number of improvements. There also has been back and forth with the owner over time, but that really is a separate issue. In a special use permit, the first thing you look at is the comprehensive plan and compliance with it. And this area is designated as downtown, as a downtown land use designation. What the town is hoping for is from First Street to 16th Street along Main, that will be the town's retail commercial core with attractive storefronts. Right now, it's more warehouse style. Think of a lot of the buildings that you have in Rhino and Denver if you go down there. And a special use permit is approved by the board, and he cannot operate until it is approved by the board, and he would have to get his appropriate state license, and they are waiting for him to get approved by the board and construct the facility as he has proposed. Review criteria. First is compliance generally with the code, and I have found that this is in general conformance with Chapter 17.76 special use permit. Compatibility of the proposal with the surrounding area. I think it's in general compatibility. I think it can fit in well. It's a pretty eclectic area, but I think it can bring different activity to that part of Main Street and hopefully expand and bring more people into Main Street. One of the criteria, this is pretty subjective, desirability and need for the proposed use. I think that need is desirable for the downtown. I know I've looked at going out for a quick one after a meeting. Encouragement of the most appropriate use of land throughout the town. I think we can check that box also. Adverse environmental influences, is that possible with this proposed use? Not really, but the only thing we've come up with is if yeast and some other items get out of hand and would be put into the septic system. And one of the conditions we have is to work with Public Works to make sure that that does not happen. That work will be done during the building permit. Compatibility of the proposed use with the comprehensive plan. I've already touched base on that before. The big provisions for special use permit: adequate ingress, egress, vehicular traffic, parking, servicing, loading and unloading. There's plenty of parking on that site, and let me just give out the diagram here. Okay, this is the site plan for for this use here. There really are no other retail uses in this building. And when I've been out there a couple times, once with Rich and a couple times on my own, there really are no cars. There's no parking anywhere along the whole frontage of that building. You would come in here off of 3rd Street and there's plenty of room to park. And what he hopes is people will come in here, the main entry, off of Main Street, pick up whatever you want here, and down below here is that outside area for use in the warm time of the year, and actually in Silt most of the time of the year, and that's the food truck right there. The hope is to have everybody come into the front and then down through the business itself. Parking for this, I would take it as a restaurant or tavern is the closest use, and that's 1 per 200 square feet of area. As I said before, there is plenty of parking available. Utilities, I don't think there'd be any adverse impact on utilities itself. We'll work to make sure it doesn't happen to the wastewater. And for this use, I do not feel that there would be any unusual need for buffering or screening. If that changes, he would be subject to a screening fence that meets town criteria. Staff's general reaction, I think it could really help the downtown. It could fit in well. It could bring a different use for that side of Main Street. Some people call it messy vitality. Yeah, there are more shop uses down there, but he's willing to locate and try to make it work, and I think he ought to be given the chance. Staff findings, the application meets the provision of the comprehensive plan, and the application generally meets the review criteria for a special use permit. I told you before what the Planning Commission general action was, but I will repeat these quickly for the record. And I would recommend, and the Planning Commission recommends, approval of the special use permit at the proposed location with the following conditions. All statements made by the applicant, both in the application and in any meetings before the commission and the board, are considered conditions of approval. That the applicant obtain all necessary liquor license requirements from the state of Colorado and provide evidence to the town clerk. That the applicant obtain a building permit for all improvements within the structure as well as for any improvements for an outside patio. That the applicant notify the town Department of Community Development on any proposed changes over time and/or expansion of the activities within the building or adjacent to it where they are licensed. And that the applicant owner coordinate with Public Works Department as part of the building permit process. I forgot to indicate that the mailing, which is a certified mailing, was done, and he has returned the green cards, and he does have the certificates for the green cards that haven't been returned, because there's always one or two of those matters. And with that, before I turn it over for Rich, do you have any questions of me?
I guess I have one quick question as far as, is he gonna have any where's the sign, is he gonna put any signage up for advertising, or where's that gonna be?
Oh, he could put up a sign, he'd have to comply
But I
with the
mean, he's
time
in the
code.
back, so is it gonna be in the front someplace, or?
Well, we'll be in the front, yeah.
That's, I mean,
yeah.
that's what I'm asking, it's gonna
Right,
be
yes,
on the building, or on the corner, or?
Rich,
Right
have you
above my
thought?
space, right above our space, in the front, right above the door,
Have you,
where you go in.
have you seen advanced garage doors sign?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
probably
right next
like
to it,
that.
right
Something
next
like-
to
okay.
it,
Yeah.
with uplighting.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
Cool.
just curious, I didn't know where it
No,
was gonna
okay.
be, so.
right, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so his space does go
All the
Main
way.
Street all the way
Right,
through.
but I didn't
so,
know if he
yeah.
was,
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just
I
the
was-
back, yeah.
if it was gonna be on the building or where it was, so.
I don't really have any questions. I supported this before, and I support it now.
Yeah.
I think this is a better location, actually.
Okay.
I think it may have some opportunities for more in that building possibly too.
Yeah.
Or if he goes gangbusters and you wanna expand a little bit, there's room to expand in that building as well, so it's a great opportunity, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I supported it back when I was on P&Z, and I still support it, but I do have a question on how is water gonna get to the food truck, or how is waste gonna
we're-
get out?
We're gonna feed water to the back. I don't know how I'm gonna do it this winter, and I have to see what happens. We have I think a 20 or 25 gallon water tank inside the trailer, and it's heated and air conditioned. But yeah, we're gonna run and put spigots out back. So I'm not gonna tie into the sewer. I'm gonna have it pumped. But I am gonna tie electric in, and we're gonna try to get. I'm close enough to the building. I don't know if I can get some water under and get it up. It's gonna depend on how it's gonna freeze. I might just have to hook up a hose, fill the tank, make sure the tank's full, put the hose back in the
Yeah.
warmth, and then next summer, next spring, figure something out that it won't freeze. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I'm gonna put in outside spigots back there anyway, so I
Uh-huh.
can hose off the patio and stuff. So, yeah, that's gonna be a trial and error thing, hooking it up to the trailer in the winter.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to do it permanently, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work totally yet until we see how cold it gets this winter now.
Okay.
If I
And-
bust any pipes.
Yeah. Well, I hope not either. And then
Me
I'm
either.
assuming he'll have a backflow device on there, or how is that gonna work?
There's a backflow device on that building
Oh, okay.
that feeds water to the whole
Oh,
building,
okay,
so
cool.
we're protected there.
All right. Right on.
Like he said, on the sewer, the wastewater side, he was gonna have the trailer pumped out, and in the zone itself where he's brewing, we looked at it the other day, he's actually gonna have a catch basin, and then it's gonna have a lift on it to lift it up through the building and get it to our wastewater where he's gonna be doing the batches.
Oh, okay.
So if there's any grain, it'll be in the bottom of the catch basin, and we'll vacuum it out once a
Yeah.
week, twice, whatever it takes.
Cool.
So, yeah,
Cool. All right. Thank you, guys.
yeah.
I guess I just had a couple questions for Richard, because everything that comes in the packet kind of goes into this approval. So there were a couple lines in your operation plan that I was just curious about. To me, it feels like they restrict you, but maybe it's fine. I just had You had in there that you do a max of 17 barrels per month.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's
Okay.
500 and something gallons. So
Okay.
yeah, probably. The state license is obviously a lot more than that,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's enough to start with.
Because well, our attorney's here. If he happens to brew, if he wanted to do 20 barrels, he would have to come back and ask for
That's not a condition.
No, that's not a condition.
just.
No, I think it's just information he's
Okay.
submitting.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, because the other concern I had was that your last call would be 9 to 10, and I don't want that to be a condition of approval that he has a
No.
ban till 11, and it's
If,
No.
unless if you, I mean, again, material representations that the applicant is trying to get you to issue the permit, they become binding statements. I mean, the fact that he's submitted this information, that this is his startup anticipation, unless if you choose to make it a condition, I don't deem it a binding limitation.
binding. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I think the only thing that would affect that will be daylight savings if it changes next year. In the summer, it's gonna be lighter, longer. It might stay open an hour longer, but nothing good happens after 10 o'clock.
Think
So
about
I will never have it open after 10. That's just something I'm not interested in.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted.
Sleep
Yeah.
sometime, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you weren't locking yourself into some requirements that we couldn't modify later. So.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a point of order, and with regard to the conditions, I don't think you have to change it, but for the applicant's benefit, there will be a local element to the liquor license permitting, so you'll want to talk with Sheila. When you submit your state liquor license, please come talk to Sheila, and she can walk you through the local elements of that.
No problem.
Okay.
Rich, is there anything that I missed or that I misspoke that you want to correct?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
In special use permits or
This is.
2 years?
Yeah.
And does he come back in the future? I don't remember. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to see what it says.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is the special use permit for every 2 years?
That's not really my style. If this was something that it's a real trial balloon to see if it can work.
Yeah, sure.
You know, you can ask for renewal. I don't think he needs to come back. If you have a concern or if you were to see how it works, you could make that. But
Sure.
I thought this was, if he has people out there till 9 o'clock at night, that's a good thing.
For sure.
Let's look at the code real quick.
Right.
I haven't looked at this in a long time.
Yeah.
I did not see it as a requirement in the special use permit.
So,
Maybe there isn't one, but I, for some reason, thought there was.
And while while Michael's looking, making sure that I didn't miss something, it is a public hearing, so maybe you could open that and people could provide testimony as necessary.
Okay. Yeah, we can go ahead and do that. So the time is now 7:40 p.m. and we will open up the public hearing in regards to resolution number 15, series 2022. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, I did not hear from anyone, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
see a time frame on this.
I do not show any raised hands.
Thank you. And would anybody in the public like to speak in regards to this agenda item?
Sometimes they're stuck in other.
Seeing none, the time is now 7:41 p.m. and we will close the public hearing. And, we'll see if our attorney has found what he was looking for yet.
I mean, the special use permit section of the code doesn't have a specific time limitation.
Okay.
Usually a special use permit is granted for the period of the use. In some communities that I work with, the code does allow the municipality to review the special use permit to determine compliance every so often, but it's not that you have to come in and reapply. It would be more of a situation that if the provisions of the special use permit were being violated, the town could move forward with an enforcement action. So I think they're not time limited.
Yeah, I know we do have a couple of residential use,
Right,
special
yeah.
use permits that are every 2 years that we renew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where that came
So
from.
yeah, this one probably just doesn't have a time locked into it, and I don't see any reason to
I don't either. I was just
lock a time
curious.
into this one. If he does a brewery and the brewery's doing well, there's no sense in coming back in
Yeah.
2 years to say, oh, sorry, we don't like it now. So
You will generally hear if there
Yeah,
are problems.
if there's a
or
problem, yeah.
The police or somebody else. so.
yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the special use permit for All In Brewing LLC doing business as Brew Zone Silt with the conditions noted above, which are 1 through 5.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Knott to approve the special use permit for All In Brewing doing business as Brew Zone Silt, including the 5 conditions in the staff report. This motion was
And the resolution.
Oh, which is resolution
Yeah, there's a resolution 15.
series 2022.
okay, which is resolution number 15, series 2022.
Yep.
Yes.
So amended, and that motion was seconded by Trustee Clausen. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We're over the hurdle again. Let's see what happens.
All right.
Good luck.
Night.
The next agenda item is the continued first reading of ordinance number 11, series 2022, and staff has requested a continuance till the September 12th meeting.
Yeah, so Jeff and I want to take a minute to review this ordinance with Trey. We may also reach out to a couple of the utilities who this ordinance might apply to. We hope to have that done by September 12th, but we may ask you for a little bit more time.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to continue the first reading of ordinance number 11, series 2022, to our September 12th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Knott to continue ordinance number 11, series 2022 till the staff, or till the September 12th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. Seconded by Trustee Brittenall. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 16, series 2022. A resolution of the Town of Silt, Colorado, approving the second amended and restated annexation for the development agreement for the Dixon annexation, formerly known as the Divide Creek Center and now known as Rislinda, within the Town of Silt, Garfield County, State of Colorado. And I will turn this over to our attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, a couple of meetings ago, we had an agenda item with you where we worked through various provisions that are contained in the existing annexation and development agreement for what is known as the Divide Creek Center PUD. And we presented to you a chart, and it had provisions in the existing agreement, and it had language that had been requested by the applicant, and then it had in a third column language that the town staff was recommending. We spent a fair amount of time working through that chart at that time, and we have taken that information and had meetings with the Rislinda developer, and have, I think, reached agreement on the form of what will be called the second amended and restated annexation agreement, annexation and development agreement. Just by way of history, the property was annexed in 2007, so there was a 2007 annexation agreement, and that was amended in 2013, and that was called the amended and restated annexation agreement, and now we're to the second amended and restated annexation and development agreement. I have not highlighted in the staff memo provisions that we have changed, that when we discussed them 2 meetings ago, that the board did not have a problem with, or didn't really invoke much discussion. In as much as those provisions seem to be generally acceptable both to staff and to the Board of Trustees. I have called out in the cover memo 4 or 5 items that I did want to take a quick chance to walk through. They are on areas that I think we reached a consensus with the board at the last meeting, but we just want to double check and see if you have any further questions. So item number 1 in the staff memo, we did include information related to non-potable water irrigation, and specifically if the developer desires to have a second raw water irrigation well, the town will go out, decree a well at an alternative location on their property, and include that in the town's plan for augmentation. That would be done at the cost of the applicant, but it would add some flexibility in terms of that large property having not just one well that could be used for raw water irrigation, but 2 if that proved to be more cost effective. So we've added that provision. Parkland dedication, this was a topic that was discussed quite extensively at the last meeting. The language in section 2.2A accomplishes a few things. First of all, it acknowledges the dedication of a 15-foot trail easement along the frontage road, and that dedication will constitute partial satisfaction of the parkland dedication requirement for the property. The remaining parkland dedication of 0.9 acres will be half implemented by parks that are developed on the property, and up to, it's not a requirement, but up to 50% of the remaining acreage or fractions of acres could be handled by the developer paying the cash in lieu amount of money to the town. The provision also acknowledges that the developer will be dedicating to the town the 12.3 acre river parcel, and that will be deemed as satisfaction of the passive parkland requirement under the town's code. Section 2.2G deals with trails. Exhibit A, which was included in your packet, identifies a hard surface trail along the frontage road with crossings at County Road 311 over toward the Holiday Inn, as well as to the north to the tunnel underpass. It also identifies 2 soft surface trails on either end of the property, which will be developed over time with soft surface trails that lead down to the river. This provision also includes a cash in lieu dedication that the developer would make to the town in lieu of the prior ADA's obligation to build a trail underneath County Road 311, as we heard at the last meeting from Mark, as well as from the developer. The bridge height over the water and the ballast material at the base makes developing that trail crossing at the current time pretty much impractical. The original annexation agreement, or actually the first amended annexation agreement, had a cap of $15,000 on the developer's contribution toward that. We did a rough adjustment of that number for inflation and arrived at a $20,000 contribution. So that will be coming to the town. The ADA also requires that the developer pay for the costs of trail crossings at County Road 311 and on the frontage road to ensure safe passage of pedestrians and bicycles across those two roads. Section 2.3A deals with site plan review. As we talked about at the last meeting, the town code normally only requires site plans for commercial and multifamily development to go to the P&Z. This provision in the second amended ARADA will have those plans also coming to the Board of Trustee for review. I just would highlight Article 3.8 provides that the owner must obtain a final plat, subdivision plat for the property within 5 years. Certainly the applicant can speak to this in more detail, but our understanding is that they will be moving forward with preliminary plan and eventually final plat approval with the town fairly promptly as for Mitchell to be able to pursue the Reslinde development concept. He needs to subdivide the property out of the land that the original developer, Mr. Carruth, will be retaining. So our expectation is that even though the agreement gives them some time to move toward a final plat, that will take place fairly promptly. There are 2 exhibits that were passed out that we were still fine-tuning at the time that the packet was sent to the town. Those have been passed out to you. Exhibit B simply is an exhibit identifying the internal streets, trails, and pathways that will be private and will be maintained by an owners association and not dedicated to the town. That doesn't mean that they won't be open for the public's use for access purposes, but that they will not, the town won't have a require to plow those roads or to maintain those trail areas. And Exhibit C is a trail phasing plan that discusses that in particular the trail along the frontage road will be built in 2 phases. One phase will be triggered by the development of Tract 1. That's going to be a multifamily parcel, and that will require that the hard surface trail be constructed from the western edge of Lot 1 all the way to the eastern edge of the property, which is on the far side of the BLM property, as well as a soft surface trail which will be developed at that same time on the east end of the BLM property down to the river. And then for all the remaining other tracks within the proposed subdivision, the development of any of one or all of those tracks, if they were to be developed together, would require the construction of the trail from the western edge of Tract 1 all the way down to County Road 311, as well as the soft surface trail that would lead along County Road 311 down to the river. So we apologize we didn't have those in final form at the time the packet was put together, but again, they've been distributed and our recommendation would be for approval together with the exhibits as they have been handed out to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. We do have the applicant here to provide answers to any additional questions you may have.
I don't have any specific questions. Interested to hear what you guys have to say here.
Anybody before I
Go for it.
got it?
Yes, I don't have any.
Anything?
We kind of talked quite a bit about it last time, so.
Okay. I still think we're getting shorted counting a 8-foot wide trail and a 15-foot easement, giving him the whole 15-foot easement to count as parkland. Since we're changing this ARADA, we're not tied to any of the $15,000 for the underpass. That's just what it was.
Is what it was.
So changing that to $20,000, if we ever want to do that project, that's going to get us a traffic study to cross that road.
Right.
So if we're going with this, we will never have a path under County Road 311. It'll be just like places throughout town where they weren't required to put in sidewalks, and now we have a town that doesn't have sidewalks in front of half the lots.
Yep.
If we want something, this is the time to get it done. I don't like the idea of a soft surface trail for our river access. That's going to last one season of the river going up and down till it's washed away, and then the town's going to be paying to rebuild that because it's going to be ours. I think that's the biggest points I have right now is I think we are selling our citizens short by giving up things that the developer hasn't wanted to move towards our standards on.
Sure.
So as this is written right now, I will be voting no on this second reading.
So I'm curious on like the soft surface trail, right? So are you thinking that it should be at a minimum asphalt?
It needs to be asphalt or concrete, probably concrete since it's gonna have
I'd rather see concrete.
the river coming up and down on it.
Yeah. Okay. For just the access point? Or are you talking?
There'll be there's two soft.
So I think
There's one either end.
Yeah, there's one on either end. So we have one on the east end.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be asphalt or concrete. It needs to be asphalt at least to the point of crossing
And
County
then-
Road 311, and then concrete
All the way to the river.
all the way to the river, and the one on the east end should be concrete the whole way.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the path with the 15-foot easement and the width of the actual path, right? So that's been a big contention that we've had regarding the park space. So as far as the easement, we had some discussions about how that would possibly look or be landscaped, if you will, right?
Right.
But I don't know if the idea of making that path wider is what you're thinking, or
No, I'm thinking counting the 8 feet wide of path towards their parkland
and not the actual
and
easement
not the
itself.
15 feet, because you're not gonna have kids riding their bikes through the gravel next to the
Yeah,
path
yeah, no,
for
that's-
activities.
that's
They're gonna be
true.
using the path itself. So yeah, if you divide whatever they're calculating the strip of that by 2, then we still have a little portion left over that I think should be required to be parkland within this
Okay,
development.
got it. All right, so then the big one would be the path underneath County Road 311.
311.
So there was some discussion whether or not that's even really like a doable thing.
It's feasible.
It is completely unfeasible to go underneath the bridge. The grading, to go under the bridge. The grading on the north side to go under County Road 311, the transition from the intersection to the bridge is about 16 feet
Okay,
from the existing path to the road surface. So we have 16 feet to have a tunnel go underneath County Road 311. I'm not an engineer, but without changing road grading or anything, I think you can get a tunnel underneath that. And if we don't make it go in with this project, we're gonna have 2 paths that stop at the river on either side and an at-grade crossing.
right, which basically means County Road 311 is the connector to both of those.
To both of those.
To both of those trails.
And people aren't gonna walk from that lower connection at the river point back up to the Holiday Inn and cross the road. They're gonna go up the embankment, across the edge of the bridge, and right back down on the other side.
Which is probably true. Mhm.
Yeah, it probably is true, which is, you have some kid dart out in front of a semi truck doing that.
And when you approach that bridge from the south, it's up the bridge, across the bridge, down the bridge. As you're going up and across, the traffic sight's not going to be that good.
Gotcha. What did you guys, as far as looking into that, right? We talked about that before with passing underneath, right, as opposed to at grade. You guys didn't do any sort of.
We've not talked about it before.
Here we have.
We talked about it at the last meeting.
No, we talked about underneath the river, or along the river.
No, I brought it up at the last meeting about going underneath the road with a tunnel, yeah.
Well, I was on Zoom. I didn't catch that
Yeah.
particular comment.
Okay.
I mean, we had investigated site visits to take a look at the bridge underpass discussion, which I think we all had, at least for 2 meetings. I do remember you bringing up an underpass under the road, but I guess part of that discussion is, do we need to do an engineering study to figure out the feasibility of that? And is that something that you're requesting us to do? Or, I mean, it seems a little difficult at this point in time to accept a condition of approval if that's where this is headed for a tunnel under a road without an engineering study.
So what was the scope of that agreement before with the previous developer to install that? Like, was that just hey, we think you should do this? They say, hey, we think we'll do that. Like, we agree to it, or did anybody actually study it or look into it that we know about? I mean, that's well before I was here.
It goes back about 10 years, and I believe that at that time, Janet, our former planner, had gone down to the property and had looked at the rocks and the existing abutment of the bridge and realized that construction of that was going to be very challenged, and so she negotiated a cash out option for that of $15,000. I honestly don't remember where that number came from.
Yeah.
But I do recall that there was discussion at that time as to how constrained the area is from the river to the bridge abutment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's completely unfeasible to go under the bridge. I think a tunnel is an option.
Okay.
We discuss it all the time about that we need to separate pedestrian traffic from street traffic.
How about a fence to guide people back to the frontage road?
Minimum.
That's an idea.
So where would you put where were you talking the tunnel then? Would be
Would just be on the north side of the bridge.
okay.
How big would the tunnel be?
And same size that we have going underneath I-70.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Car through it?
And I can about imagine the paperwork it's gonna take for the state to get approval to put that tunnel underneath there.
It's a county road.
It's a county road, so we're dealing with Garfield County at that point.
But I think it does bear mention that those precast concrete tunnels, which is usually the way that they're done to my knowledge, and setting them, I mean, that very likely is a 7-figure obligation.
Yeah.
Let's move on really quick. The hard pack towards the river, whether that's asphalt or concrete, that does seem to be a reasonable thing to think about, especially with the river potentially washing away, whatever soft pack is there, and then just over time, foot traffic with rain, snow, runoff.
I haven't really looked at or thought about soft pack. It's kind of I've been swamped with my day job, so this is the first I'm hearing of some of the details. But
Sure.
I kind of was under the impression it was gonna be dirt. Just kind of a hard packed, cleaned, nice dirt path down to the.
Well, I think dirt would be considered soft pack.
Yeah, soft packed.
Yeah,
Right.
we had considered crushed granite.
It does say
but
crushed
still
granite on here.
compacted crushed granite over maybe some kind of road base. But the key being that that gets you to the property line for the river parcel that the town owns. And then beyond that, I think is probably where, because that's kind of the ordinary watermark. I mean, what it sounds like you're talking about potentially is an apron of concrete, kind of like a boat ramp that gets you down into the water without washing away.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
There's high water or flood. So, for the most part, I think our anticipation, both in the last meeting and previous meetings, was that we had a 3-foot wide crushed granite trail with subbase, compacted subbase underneath it that gets you down. So it's really more of a footpath and not a regional trail kind of standard like the upper path along the frontage road.
Yeah, and then what are your thoughts on that apron of concrete down by the water itself, so it doesn't get washed away, so that we're not, as a town, having to go down and, do, annual maintenance on it, if you will, due to
almost
people not
feel
being
like-
able to get to it?
And a popular phrase tonight, I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like if you had, because I see like boat ramps getting washed out around and underneath, right, as current, right? Because it's gonna hit that dirt, but not the concrete, and kind of wash and make that sketchy. So I honestly wonder, is just nice compacted dirt path sort of the right application here?
All right, let's go back to the easement space.
Yeah.
As far as whether or not we would agree to allow the easement itself to go towards the parkland dedication. So it's a pretty valid point on the mayor's point of you have that many feet of land that really isn't usable or going to be used by really
It's
anybody.
usable, whether it's used or not, we can't really say, but it would be usable.
Well, I mean, if you were to think of a park per se,
Yeah.
an actual park, that is a destination for people to go recreate
I don't
to,
know
and
what is the standard? Would easements be, like if we're doing a,
So we have
where we're
7
doing
feet,
a
wouldn't we have?
playground or something, if there's an easement involved, does that count park?
Right, but that, I think to your point about the path, yes, I mean, easements count as park. We have an easement in painted pasture that allows the public to come in and use a park that has a playground on it, has grass in it, has picnic tables and that type of stuff. So easements have counted as parkland in the past, but they're easements for the public to come in and utilize those facilities, just like there would be easements for this path for the public to come in. I think the discussion point here is the width of that easement.
Correct.
And how much of that width counts as actual parkland versus drainage. I mean, the platform for the path is 10 feet, but it is 2 feet of gravel on either side. That soft shoulder can help be used as soft shoulder for,
Jogging.
passing, running, jogging, softer surface to walk on.
Yeah.
So I think legitimately the 10 feet can be used. The other 2.5 feet on either side of that are really for drainage. I mean, it's really to.
Drainage and landscaping.
And I think part of the discussion we had early on about not making the easement even wider, like adding landscape within the easement to make it more park-like, is that then all of the parkland gets eaten up in that path versus, I mean, right now we still have about an acre of parkland that'll be incorporated into the overall project. So that's with the 15-foot easement. There will still be 9/10 of an acre of additional park space in this project. So, I mean, it's a discussion of the 10 feet versus the 15 feet. I think if we had 10 feet of easement that counted,
It would be 2/3 of the number.
so I would say there would probably be, if there's currently 9/10 of an acre left, I don't know, maybe it would be somewhere close to an acre and a half or something of parkland. I'd have to do the math actually, so just to do the square footage calculations, but obviously there would be additional parkland required for the project if we did a 10-foot easement versus a 15-foot easement.
You'd be getting back 1/3 of whatever we're calling right? Because we're going from 15 to 10, so it's going to be,
Mhm.
you're getting back a third of whatever that number is.
So, you know, as it relates to the tunnel, my opinion on the tunnel is that that's a pretty hard thing to require these guys to install, especially not knowing how much that could cost. And truly, I mean, I can't imagine it being a seven-figure thing. Some of the other items, however, I do think are valid. So I'm curious. I would like the pass coming down to the river to be some sort of a hard pack versus just dirt or crushed granite over road base, so we don't have to worry about it getting washed away, you know, over time, low spots, you know, potholes, that sort of thing. So I'd like to talk about that. I could get over the tunnel, I think. The fence wasn't a terrible idea.
When we talked to you about it, doing, at the entry to the KO, or to the Holiday Inn, which is about at halfway to the, frontage road, of doing some kind of a crossing when that area was developed as well, I believe, was part of that. And that would, I mean, it's not, obviously it's not a tunnel, but at least it's some kind of a crossing in addition to having to go all the way up to the other part of the crossing.
All right, what do you guys think?
Well, my thoughts are, I mean, I'd really like to see the lower trail used if we could, because then, you know, if the 15-acre parcel sells, then they could maybe try to, you know, continue the path on the north.
So just so I know what you're, when you're talking
You
about the
know what I
lower
mean?
trail, tell me what you're talking about when you're talking about the lower trail, so I know.
Well, you know, yeah, and I'm not, yes, I know a tunnel would be probably prohibitively expensive, but I mean, I'd like to see that trail somehow go under here to connect there,
Okay.
and then to utilize that path, you know, just because I don't want future developers going, well, you guys let them, you know, not really utilize the lower path, you just let them do a path along the road there.
Of course, the Holiday Inn is along the road too.
I'm not
Yeah, and
following
then,
you on that.
and
What's he-
there's a
what are
path
you
on both
talking about?
sides, I get that.
So that right now there's an existing path along the river behind the Holiday Inn, and there's an existing path
Right.
along the river at the KOA. The whole future of that was to have a path that runs along the river that whole way. And that was including this parcel. Now we've moved the path off the river up to the street. Now we're not having the path connect, so when that 15 acres between the Holiday Inn and KOA develops, there's no continuity
Right.
to the whole thing. It's
I
everybody's
just feel
done.
it's more attractive having a path by the river than by the road.
But remember
Sorry.
that the impetus for the path's location was largely driven by the unique concept that this developer is bringing forward for
Yes.
the use of the river frontage, and finding a way to harmonize the desire to have a good trail system in that area with, again, the unique nature of what they're trying to create.
Yeah, but, you know, the mayor's right. I mean, now's our chance, you know, to get it how we want it, as opposed to, you know, 5 years down the road, oh, well, we should have done it that way.
I would, and again, I mean, ultimately, you need to balance what's best for the town. This particular section of trail reminds me of, if you've been to Glenwood Springs, over by Two Rivers Park, and where the gondola is for the cavern.
Yeah.
That, you know, at Two Rivers Park, you have two trail nodes that come together, the Roaring Fork River Trail, as well as the trail that goes over by the hot springs and up the canyon. They come together right there. Trail goes through the park, and then there's a bridge over the freeway. And that bridge, in large part, serves people who are trying to get to the caverns. And if you can think of that overpass over the I-70 right there, there's steep banks on both sides. And where people are really trying to get to is from the east side of that road to the west side to where the caverns is. And the city had a hard time regulating that traffic to the point of, it had been brought up, that people will just try and cross directly over the road, creating a traffic hazard. And so when the city redid the pedestrian bridge over the freeway, they put in a lot of barrier to keep people from jumping onto the road over there. And they also kind of set that trail a little bit lower on the slope of the road. And it pretty much has made getting onto the road impossible. And so what people have to do is they go out to the intersection where they're supposed to, and then they cross over, and then they're able to go back. So there are mechanisms by which the challenges, which are accurately portrayed, can be handled. And as I had seen the payment, again, it's up to you to kind of decide how to do this right for Silt, given where we're at in the juncture of this development. But the concept of an in lieu payment, in my mind, was to help provide the town with some funds that could be used to both extend a trail on the west side of County Road 311, so from where that trail terminates at the Holiday Inn, and to get people up to the County Road 311 crossing, as well as to provide some funding to put some fencing and other barrier, if you will, in to prevent people from jumping on the road. The way that the annexation agreement is written is that it will be the developer's obligation to provide and pay for the necessary things at that intersection to create a safe crossing. And you'll notice those aren't articulated today because we haven't gone through the engineering process. That will happen at preliminary plan, which again, the developer can provide us with some guidance as to when they think they're gonna come in for that. But at the time that they go through preliminary plan to subdivide the property, they're gonna have to have a full-blown engineering study demonstrating what's needed and what's works. And Mark and Derek will at that same time be reviewing that critically and saying, no, we need, we need flashing lights, we need, fencing to prevent people from wandering into the road. So there is a bit of a second bite at the apple as to the form of what actually happens down there. But again, you are correct. If you as the town leaders believe that like a tunnel is really the thing that's needed and where that position has to happen, that is a decision that would be memorialized in this agreement. It would not be punted down the road.
Yeah, and in relation to that trail you were talking about in Glenwood, yeah, where it crosses underneath 8th Street, I mean, you can touch the road bridge, so that's not very tall, and that's kind of what I had in mind with this. I knew there isn't a lot of room, but because you can't drive a truck underneath on that path.
I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
It was.
But
Where would you put it?
So right there where the path ends at the Holiday Inn?
Right here?
No,
Here? Here?
right there,
Right here?
right there. So right there at that point,
Yeah.
the road's about 16 feet higher than the bottom of the path.
Right, yeah, right here.
Yep.
Then here. And you would want to put it right to there.
Yeah, straight, I mean,
Yeah, I got
yeah,
you.
right
To
across.
have there. To connect to this, to go up
Yep.
there.
I wish I could see.
I think the practicality of the amount of people that will actually use that is very low. I think you're gonna get people staying at the Holiday Inn wanting to access that. I think you're gonna get the Silt citizens coming down the bridge, coming in the tunnel now, and they're right there on the frontage road already,
Yeah.
and then access it and then go back out.
So here's a thought that I have just regarding this whole discussion is like, so let's just say there's a tunnel, the way that everything else is laid out, but we get a tunnel, there's a tunnel there. And then we have the path that comes down from River Frontage Road to the corner and it hits here. This island is still theirs. There's still no path going along the river.
No.
So it would make in my mind, I mean, I would probably push harder for a tunnel if that thing was to like connect here and then, you know, cross there and then somehow be able to still follow the river. Or even if it just went this way, you know what I mean? Like up on the upper part of this part of the river, you know what I mean?
Right, and that was the original intent of the previous annexation agreement.
Was to
Was to have
continue
the
that
trail along the bottom edge.
of this here.
This development moved it to the road because it's more conducive for their use of the property.
Yeah, gotcha. Right. So I can overlook the tunnel, I suppose. You know, that's a pretty big ask, I think. But some of these other items, I definitely think we should discuss in further detail to see if we can come up with a different arrangement, perhaps, if we all agree on it. One would be the size of the easement, whether or not we would agree to let that easement number count towards their parkland dedication, and then two, you know, what these little paths would be built out of from river frontage road essentially down to that part of the river. So,
We have to manage them, right? Post-installation, Trey and his team have to manage those pathways if they get removed, destroyed, whatever, by Mother Nature, what have you.
Yes.
What does that cost end up being over time?
hard to say. I don't mean to cut you off on that.
But not zero.
Yeah, no, you're correct. I do have another question though. Well, this might go into what you're gonna talk about, so let me ask my question and then maybe, but like on Exhibit B, for example, when we're looking at that, you know, as we're talking about maybe the way that the original path was intended to go along the upper part of that river, you know, so these say private neighborhood sidewalk trail, right? I mean, are we talking about those are private in the fact that, you know, you're gonna put up no trespassing signs so people, you know, to discourage people from walking on those trails? Or, you know, if we do have somebody that's just walking along, you know, the easement there and the path that's built along River Frontage Road, they wanna hang a right down that private road, I mean, are they gonna be discouraged from doing that via signage
The
or?
word private is just for, it's the same as the street, right? It's
Yeah.
like the maintenance of it.
It just who has to maintain it. So they're gonna plow those streets and shovel those sidewalks within this development.
Got it.
Anybody can go walk down that.
Well, just making sure,
Sidewalk.
just as it says private neighborhood, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I don't know if you're trying to make that exclusive to just the
No,
folks
we
there.
had actually talked about that, Doug and I, a couple of weeks ago. Honestly, and to be, you know, as transparent as I've been since, I think since the beginning, there's probably some, you know, some likelihood, some occasions where I would close off the trail to the island. So
Okay.
you see it going around that little,
Yeah, I see the little arrow
cul-de-sac,
going down there, yeah.
the little sort of spur, the branch that goes to the island. Maybe 3-4 times a year it's closed for like an event or something, right?
Mhm.
But the rest of it is like thoroughfare.
Yeah.
And really, the point of this exhibit was there was a public infrastructure exhibit and there was a private infrastructure exhibit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
gotcha.
wasn't to make it exclusive, it was just to differentiate.
That was my
Yeah.
question, whether or not
Yeah.
that was the intention to make it exclusive, so,
Just to make it inclusive.
But you did have a
Well,
statement you'd like to make, yeah.
so like if it
Oh, yeah.
helps, right? Because I'm with you on the underpass, right? I'd love to see something connecting that thing. A tunnel would kill us. It would kill the project, right? Just the amount of money that would require. And I think the original intent was to do that, you know, that path under the underpass, and I think that would be amazing if it was feasible. I wonder, and Trey, and I don't know if you've got any info to help us or whatever, but I would add language to the errata that if that bridge, or like when that bridge gets replaced, or like serious maintenance, or whatever the county, the city, the state, whomever is involved with that, has to like redo that bridge, and now something under it becomes feasible, or that gives us an opportunity, the state, the county, the city, whomever, right, to kind of create more headspace, or to re-engineer that in a different, you know what, then that gives us an opportunity to now put a path under there. So I'm open to that. I mean, it might be, you know, 40 years from now.
Right.
But I hate, you know, I would hate, I empathize with your position, Mr. Mayor, that this is sort of, you know, the opportunity to kind of make something like that happen. So let's let's say right now it's not feasible, but if we ever do a project where that becomes feasible, let's revisit this and let's build a trail under there.
Now we just put language in here that says that.
Yeah.
I have a question though, and I'm admittedly somewhat ignorant on this, just because I've not gone to that point, like gotten out of my car and walked around. We're talking about a tunnel, which is a pretty big deal, but we had a discussion of just making a trail under there, right? Like just a walking trail.
Yeah, so the existing underneath the bridge is just boulders.
Yeah.
There's no, there's no way to walk.
For erosion control, though, I don't know how you're gonna remove the boulders and
Yeah.
protect the
It's
structures.
a bridge abutment, yeah.
Okay, so it's not possible
It's
to
not
put an
po-
actual
it's-
trail under
No,
there.
it's not possible
Okay,
to put
okay,
one.
okay. That's good. That's
Underneath
good
there,
for me.
yeah.
It's good for me to know.
Yeah.
Going through
If
that.
somebody goes in and rebuilds that bridge or
I mean,
parts of it or whatever, that gives
kind
us
of
an
like
opportunity.
the line of thinking there. I mean, it's something,
Let's not close
but
it off.
I just don't know how we'd ever write language when it becomes feasible, what
yeah,
feasible
exact-
means.
That's what I'm saying. How would
It makes
you,
it
how would you
legally
use
binding.
it?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but when you're developing a subdivision, your ability to get things built is at the time that the subdivision is
going
being
on.
developed.
Yeah.
I don't know that you could put in place an obligation to contribute to a tunnel or a bridge under past trail 20 years from now or 30 years from now.
I agree. Yeah.
because-
How do you do it?
Yeah.
Good idea, but how do you do it?
And then the regional trail that's going east to west, right?
Correct.
What, have we discussed what material that trail would be?
So it's hard surface material, so it's either asphalt or concrete.
Okay, so that one on the
Yeah.
north side is hard, okay.
Hard pack, yeah.
See,
Alright.
I'd
Part of our reasoning for wanting to specify that at the time when there's a geotechnical report and soils report, I mean, for us to go in and design something now without all of that information is kind of premature.
Sure, but it was hard
So
pack,
we've
I got you.
committed to it in these documents,
Sure.
that it will be hard surface and
Okay.
have a base and sub-base and surface course
Surface
that
course,
all
yeah.
meets the specs for geotechnical.
Okay.
At a minimum, I'd like to see the other two, at least a minimum of asphalt.
Oh, me too.
I mean, at least, I mean, asphalt's gonna last probably longer than concrete does out there sometimes, but a minimum at
As
least.
long as it's thick enough, yeah.
Yeah. You know, concrete cracks and heaves too, and it costs more to replace where you can just asphalt and repair, so. But that'd be at least, my thought would be at least minimum of asphalt in them other two trails.
So I think really what it would be is we would just need to specify that we would want those trails going to the river to be hard pack as well.
Yeah.
To
That's-
match,
that's my
to match the
opinion.
language of
Yeah.
that trail.
That'd be my opinion.
Doesn't that regional trail also underscore the mayor's point about the crossing there at 311 and making sure that it's safe?
Well, I don't know what you mean by underscores it. I think maybe to the point staff made that their responsibility is still to make sure that there's a safe crosswalk, you know, on County Road 311. So what do you mean?
How are we defining a safe crosswalk? Because I ride the Rio Grande Trail, let's call it semi-regularly and be generous, and there are some harrowing road crossings there. And I'm sure someone approved them as being safe when they were built. The one in McLean Flats is particularly enjoyable because it's like this winding downhill and then it's a hard left and there's the bike path going across it. It's a real test. And
Okay.
I guess my concern is about what does safety mean? How are we measuring or gauging this? How are we quantifying this?
So again, at the time of preliminary plan in the subdivision process, which we, I think, anticipate will happen soon, they're going to have to present engineered plans for the trail, including the crossing over County Road 311. There is a series of design standards for bicycle and pedestrian facilities named ASHTO, is that right? And I mean, at a minimum, it would have to be designed to ASHTO standards, which the town utilizes as part of its public works requirements. And additionally, it will be subject to both Mark and to Derek reviewing it and, you know, ensuring that what has been proposed lives up to the requirements for safety and design compliance.
And just to reinforce that a little bit, to be clear, we've addressed those commitments both at the County Road 311 crossing, but also at each of our Roslynda crossings, because we will have neighborhood roads that access the frontage road. So we need to have safe crossings at all of those locations. So it's not just the one that's there right now, but we'll need to have them everywhere. So we've tried to commit to all of those things in the documents that we've been working on with the team, with the legal team and planning team.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Dennis Caruth has his hand raised.
Okay. If you'd like to go ahead and speak, that's fine.
So can you all hear me?
Yes.
I've listened with a lot of empathy for the conversation that you have this evening, as well as the many discussions we've had over the years about access under Road 311 at the bridge. And I guess there's not an easterly extension of a trail along the river beyond that bridge. The regional trail is along the south side of the frontage road. There will be a requirement for a safe bicycle and pedestrian crossing at 311 and the frontage road intersection. It's hard for me to understand the difference between a north-south access on the west side of Road 311 versus the east side of Road 311. A tunnel, I mean, we may dream of that bridge being rebuilt in our lifetimes or in our grandchildren's lifetimes. The likelihood of that is quite remote. You know, we should be focusing our discussion around how to get the best, safest pedestrian crossing at Road 311, that intersection with the frontage road, to have a regional trail along the south side of the frontage road, to have both vehicular and pedestrian access to serve the community, to preserve the special requirements that Mitchell and Cole have with regard to the Ruslendi development. And I really think that's how this conversation should be focused, to the extent that we need to make a cash contribution to extend the concrete trail along the west side of 311. We should participate with that. So that's my thoughts.
All right, thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the trail by the river, but we're beyond that. So I'm trying to think of, come up with some sort of, I guess, compromise how to do the rest of it.
I like your idea, Sam, about the fencing.
Mm-hmm.
Direct traffic.
And just as an FYI, we're hoping to submit our preliminary plan to P&Z probably late October. So you guys would see it January, maybe?
These guys can't close till there's a plat, so they're motivated to move forward.
I mean, I love the project. I just know that if we don't get something in this agreement, it's never gonna happen. That's where I'm at on this, and that's why I think it's very important to solidify what's gonna happen at that crossing. I get putting up fences. I understand that, but I mean, we don't talk about putting a fence along the overpass to separate pedestrians from cars. We're talking about building an entire pedestrian bridge to get the separation between the cars. This is a chance for Silt to be innovative and forward-thinking in getting a project done, rather than just going with what the easiest option is.
guess the hard part for me is like probably everybody else is like, who knows what it takes to put a tunnel under there.
Right, and I think that takes creative thinking.
Give me an example.
I don't have the title of the video, but there is a video on YouTube in England
Okay.
where they're building a road. They start at like 8 o'clock at night, cut the road open, excavate, drop in a tunnel, which is for a 2-lane road,
Right.
build the tunnel, compact the dirt, repave the road, and have it back open by the next morning.
Gotcha.
It's all about the way construction processes happen and what the easy way to do it is. Is it easy to shut the road down for 6 weeks, get one backhoe out there to dig a tunnel, put a precast tunnel in, spend 2 weeks backfilling? Yeah, that takes forever. Is it easier to get a crew in there that just knocks it out and be done with it?
It'd all be contingent if the county approved it. I mean, they could say no.
I mean, the county too could say no. We won't let you
So then we'd be back
cut
to
the road,
zero
put a
one on
tunnel
it
in.
too, so.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I mean, I know you've talked about where this tunnel is, but ultimately you go under a tunnel and you're going north to the regional trail. Or you're going, I guess, south on the path to the river. So, but essentially,
And for me, it's not about the north-south where you're going. It's about the safest route to get pedestrians from this development to the rest of the developments on the west side. Whether it's the Holiday Inn, what happens at the 15 acres, we don't know, down to the KOA and what could happen potentially beyond that. It's not about the path zigging, crossing the road. It's about the safest crossing at that road. I mean, if we get a development that happens south of Silt, the golf course that wanted to go up there, and we get 900 houses on that side of the road, that road's gonna be a highway. And now we have set it up for, in the future, people crossing the road.
Yeah, it's already it's the main artery to go
south.
But they're at
Yeah.
a stop sign, I mean, it's gonna be a stop sign. They're gonna stop anyhow. It's no different than 16th and Grand. There's a stop sign there, people cross, so. It isn't like it's a through street. I would be more worried about the frontage road crossing than I am across
Yeah, I mean,
311.
the frontage road crossing, there's nothing feasible to do there to make that safe.
No.
I mean, you can't build an elevated walkway across the frontage road. This is an opportunity that is
You
there.
could almost do that maybe as cheap as you could dig the tunnel.
I think
You
you
wanna
could,
have that
I
argument,
don't,
I mean.
I don't see people coming on the frontage road, dropping down, cause there's a safer tunnel to go across and then coming back up and going about their business. I think the safest place would be across 313 by the frontage road where majority of the pedestrians are gonna be. I think you wanna protect the majority of the people as safely as possible than the few Holiday Inn stayers going across. I mean,
with
and
that
you
theory,
can even
there's
do that,
nobody
you
crossing
direct
that
them.
road.
What's that?
With that theory, there's nobody crossing that road. Because how many
30?
people are, I mean, there's
That's what I
not
mean.
gonna be anybody coming from town to go to the Holiday Inn.
No.
I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the
So-
population's not, no one's gonna be coming from town and going to the Holiday Inn. They're gonna come and go to this,
but what's
Come
gonna
here.
develop next to the 15 acres next to the Holiday Inn?
right, and then.
Who
so-
knows?
But I
But
doubt
we
they're
can't
gonna-
make them, when they decide to develop that, we can't make them put a tunnel in. That has nothing to do with their development.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, so like the citizens are gonna come under the tunnel, come to the riverfront road across 311. They're not gonna go another 20 yards to a tunnel to go over to whatever's developed by Holiday Inn. They're gonna take the shortest route, line of sight. So, I
They
mean, like,
are.
I think, yeah, I don't see I don't see the use. I would love a tunnel, that would be awesome, kinda get the Glenwood River side effect idea, but for practicality,
The tunnel makes more sense in my mind if that trail just then continued to the east.
Yes.
Along the northern side of that part of the river. But the fact that we're at the point where we are now, and you're basically gonna come through the tunnel, hit the trail, and then you're gonna hang a left. And then you're gonna go right back up to River Frontage Road anyway, and to that regional trail right? And then
The regional
to
trail's
Sam's,
gonna extend across the 15 acres, so chances are that developer's gonna hook in there as well for foot traffic and bicycle traffic, non-motorized traffic.
It depends
whatever
on,
we call
I
it.
mean, that would be up to the board, whether we make them put the trail along the river like we did with the KOA and the Holiday Inn.
But I think if the people at the KOA or if that 15 acres is developed, my opinion is they're gonna try and get, if they're gonna go anywhere, they're gonna try and go underneath the tunnel and head into town. That's the purpose. I think that's why that was put there. Like the KOA and stuff now, that's where they're going, is across. I think if we develop the Holiday Inn, I've seen people walk out of the Holiday Inn underneath the tunnel and hit the town.
Yeah.
oh, just take that way.
I mean, someday I'd like to see some sort of pedestrian bridge to the dog park, but that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's a possibility in the future,
And especially
how
if
do we
it-
leave room for that?
And especially if we put the bridge over the interstate, people are gonna head that direction. And so-
On the park and ride
Right.
side west
Yeah,
of,
they'll stay north of the,
and then they'd use the
Riverfront
frontage
Road.
road path because they're already adjacent to it when they land at the park and ride, or if they're coming from north of the highway from town to get to the dog park, they're gonna follow that. I sort of agree with Mayor Pro Tem Not. I feel like the tunnel's utilization is limited.
Well, I feel too that you can get the most bang for your buck protecting people by putting, making that crossing at 311 and the frontage road as safe as possible versus the tunnel that wouldn't get used as much as what that's gonna be used.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say almost exactly the same thing.
I knew where
Focus
you were
on
going.
making
I was just more
311
succinct than you.
bulletproof safety-wise, and then by virtue of that safety, me and my kids will go over that all the time.
Yep.
As opposed to not to be sarcastic towards what you said, but an overnight built tunnel that's maybe 7 feet tall or something, like, I'm gonna take the safest path with my kids, and that is probably gonna be along the frontage road if that's where we're safest.
I agree. I don't think we need the tunnel, so I can get past the tunnel.
But the other,
Yes,
the
but-
other important thing is the open, or the parkland,
The third-
sort of the trade-off between
Yeah.
8 feet, 10 feet, and 15 feet in
I
terms
think
of
the 10
usable
feet
space.
is pretty practical, opposed to 15 feet. I mean, 2.5 feet extra on each side for parkland. I think 10 feet would be good. And then give us a third of parkland elsewhere somehow.
I mean, 3.5 feet on each side of the trail, wouldn't it?
I think that 10 might be maybe a good compromise. I mean, I think we would probably still need a 15-foot easement because we still need to accommodate drainage for this trail.
Yeah, I mean, the easement size would be the same, it's just how much credit for parkland it is versus,
Times 10 of it
it's
towards
not
parkland.
15 feet apart, it's 10, is basically what we're saying.
And we can just do the linear footage of the trail and 10 feet of parkland dedication based on the linear footage, and that gets we would have to recrank the numbers a little bit, but that's easy enough to do. Gets additional parkland for the rest of the project.
Yeah. I mean, here, where it says for the remaining 0.9 acres of parkland dedication, up to 50% can be met by paying cash and lieu fees. I'd almost like to see that say, get rid of the up to, just say 50% will be.
No.
No.
Because I prefer them to have the option.
They
to
would rather have more parkland than we
build the
would have them
parkland
pay
than
fees.
Well,
And that's in our code,
if
that
there isn't.
Yeah.
the way the code's written, it's,
Space.
they have that right by the code up to 50%.
I was just trying to think of some way to, if they don't have the space to do it.
The code lets us do in lieu up to
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And we put in language to guarantee a certain
Parkland.
set amount of parkland.
Yeah,
Well,
which is good.
it's not at your option. It is at the
It would have to be
town's
approved,
option.
but it would let
Yeah.
us, yes.
Are we okay with 10?
I'm fine with 10 on the regional trail.
So basically, we're allowing 10 feet of the easement to go towards their parkland dedication space. Right, okay. And then would we all agree, we don't all have to agree, I suppose, but the hard surface down to the river? Or is anybody feeling like they need to talk us into the soft surface is okay?
Does Trey
I'm
have any
not
input on that?
imagining what the hard surface is gonna go. It's gonna be like a boat ramp directed into the.
Well, and the thing is, at that part of the river, if you build a boat ramp right there, it's
People are
not
get
gonna
out,
hold.
take out.
Well, it won't be a
That's what I'm
boat ramp,
curious.
cause
Well, that's what I'm
it's
saying.
not gonna
But
be
it's a
designed
straight
for
A trail, but a trail at
cars.
least, it wouldn't have to go all the way to the edge of the river, but to like where the natural high water would be or
Yeah.
something, would make sense. Because to go all the way to the river now, I mean, well, rivers move, like we've talked about, it moves up and down. But at least having a portion of that being paved, I mean, Trey, what would be your opinion be on that as public works and whatnot? What would you,
You know, if it goes to even like normal river mark, you know, and then you only have to worry about high water, you can get a concrete path in there that would hold and wouldn't undermine. I mean, we got the boat ramp right across the river. Granted, where it goes into the river, it's 8 to 9 inches thick.
Mm-hmm.
And we armored the side of it with rocks to keep it from washing out during high water and stuff. So, you know, you could put in a path that's 6 inches deep and then armor what would be the upstream side of it with rocks and stuff, and that would eliminate a lot of the erosion that would go on and try to undermine your path. Just armor it with rocks and boulders and stuff, like we did on the edge of the boat ramp. So, I mean, it's feasible to get it done.
So it's hard to tell in these exhibits how far that actually goes from the high water line
Yeah.
well,
out
it also,
into
it's,
the river.
no, it says 3 foot past, so it's only 3 foot wide, is what we're talking about going down there.
Correct.
And that's pretty narrow.
That's
Especially if people are gonna use it, say like somebody wants to throw a kayak in or something at the far end, walking up that trail with a kayak over your shoulder, you got some, or somebody coming down with a bike or something like that, that's gonna be pretty narrow. I think, maybe that should be at least 6 foot maybe.
That's the River Right's the fastest flowing section of this part. And my mind always goes to how are we gonna put direct people to the river where it's not, where like I like to wade fish, and I won't even go over there like majority of these seasons.
Well, that's not where somebody, really be honest, people would probably, even if they got in over here, they'd come out, and they would actually get out where the boat ramp is anyway, and then come across the bridge. That would, I guess what I was saying wasn't a whole lot of.
I would also bring up, we had a discussion, I think, at the last meeting about the topography on the east side over by the BLM office, and that it is high up from the river and it drops off pretty steep. I think the idea was that the developer would create a soft surface trail that would allow fishermen to get from a few parking spots over by the BLM property and to be able to scale down to the river level at that point. I don't know how practical it is to envision a hard surface trail with that topography at that location.
Okay, that's good to know. So then what about the west side? Cause that's a lot less extreme, right?
It's very I think it's very gradual.
It's more
at that
gradual for
location.
sure.
Yeah,
More gradual.
it's more gradual on that side, so. And I think the east side access that we're getting isn't even access, it's a bank you're gonna jump down to get to the river, so there's
Yeah.
gonna be 2 people a year that use that access point.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you're going down in the winter, you have better traction on the
yeah, at that point, there's no water anyway, so.
soft surface
Um,
anyway.
Dennis has his hand raised again, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
So specifically on this conversation about a hard surface versus soft surface, it seems to me, for sure, I mean, I think you have the right idea about the east end by BLM. I think on the westerly side, to the extent it's below the high water mark, it should be soft surface, so it's easy to, you know, come back in and put crushed gravel in after it washes away, and you're not trying to maintain concrete or asphalt below the high water mark. Above the high water mark, I don't think any of us have a problem with hard surface.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, you don't even put you go to the high water line and stop.
You just stop.
'Cause
That's what I would.
There's no sense in being out there every year redoing
Yeah.
a soft surface trail, so.
It's meant to give access to the river, and
Yeah.
if you have to walk across some river cobble to get to the river, it seems like people are probably gonna have to be, whether you're, have a tube or a fishing pole or whatever, you're gonna have to be prepared to do that, no matter what kind of surface you have to access.
But I would think like a hard, like I think Dennis said, a hard surface at least to the high water, the normal high water mark would be a good.
Is that reasonable?
Oh,
Does
wasn't that the
seem-
original plan?
No, it was a soft path.
It was a soft path.
Yeah,
And I'll be honest, the other reason for the soft path is that when Tract 4 gets developed, all of that area has to get raised by a number of feet. So this path will get reconstructed when
Oh, that's
Tract 4 gets
developed.
developed. So
Gotcha.
it was kind of thinking that it's a soft path to start with because
Well, do we want to
because
say?
it's going to just
That,
follow.
that
natural
is something we
grade.
could.
So do we
phase
want to
in.
put in, do we want to put in language then that during the, if when 2, 3, or 4, or 7 are done, the soft pack is done, or 2, 3, 5, 6, or 7 are done, it's a soft path. But then when track 4 is done, then it becomes a hard path.
Because then it would be the permanent, like keep
Walkway.
hitting to add in more factors.
Because
here, but
doing a
that was
gravel,
our
doing a
original
packed
thinking.
gravel along that area is gonna be maintained, I mean, it's not really, yeah. I mean,
So
as
can
long as
we-
we could get,
Yeah.
does that make sense, Mayor?
So can we have language in there that it's the developer's responsibility to maintain that until it's a hard pack trail? Because soft trail, it's gonna grow weeds every year, it's gonna have to be repacked, it's gonna wash out when it rains. It's gonna constantly need smooth until it becomes a hard pack trail.
And then once it's made a hard pack trail, then it becomes the town's.
Then it becomes, And-
That's something, we can make that work.
We
We have a hook for that.
okay. So it's tied to the development of tract 4.
Okay.
You guys can just find someone that has a lot of money to develop tract 4 and they can put a tunnel in.
Maybe by then you'll have a ton of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or new bridge.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Anything else as far as concerns that were brought up, I suppose?
I think that's in the next section. Computer keeps doing funny things to me. Let me just scan this real quick.
is,
Is it in the ARADA about the power lines?
So I didn't copy that.
That's Article 1. Michael, is it in the ARADA about the power lines to Coleridge not having to be underground?
The power,
Says there's a part about all the utilities need to be undergrounded except for the power line to Coleridge.
Yes, that's what it says. Mm-hmm. You have a power line along the frontage road itself that goes to
out.
BLM. I don't know if it goes further than that or not.
Yeah, so it's under,
Undergrounding the power line on the frontage road.
2.1
All utilities have to be
K.
underground with the
K,
exception of
yeah.
the main,
63.
that main overhead. That's the way it's written now, I believe.
63. Thanks, Derek. You got my back.
That is how that's written, yeah.
it is how that's written, and I just wondered why it's written that way. I mean, we're looking at an ordinance to put extra conduit in the ground so we can get utilities underground, but this one we're exempting from what most municipalities want to see is utilities be undergrounded.
That is a holdover from the language of the prior agreement.
Okay. I would like that parcel to be changed, that gets undergrounded also.
That just makes sense.
May I ask for clarity on that?
So along, it would be the frontage road, there's the current power lines that run along there.
Yep.
And K exempts that from having to be undergrounded during this development. So it can be left overhead, and most municipalities are requiring all utilities get put underground while development happens.
but they continue on past that overhead.
Yeah, it would just have to be undergrounded along this parcel. And that's
Would-
something I'd like to see, is everybody develops over there, that it gets, I'm trying to think, in front of the Holiday Inn, it's, can't remember, I think it's undergrounded
I
at the Holiday
forget.
Inn.
Yes, I believe you're correct. It's underground at the Holiday
Yeah, I
Inn.
think the 15-acre parcel that's above, it goes under for the Holiday Inn, and then
I
it,
think there's conduit
and then
in
it,
there to put it underground in front of the 15 already.
15, and then it pops back
Okay.
up at the corner of 311 and goes overhead again to the east.
I'm like you though, I'd have to go out there and drive again to make
Yeah,
sure.
it's been a minute since I was looking at the path last time I was out there.
Looking at the hotel. It's above ground at the hotel.
It is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, per street view.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you can see the poles at
The
the front
street
of the
view, the
Holiday
poles
Inn.
are all still there.
Oh, still there?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep, they're all above ground.
Go back to the Holiday, it's above ground on a Holiday Inn.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. So Holiday Inn above ground.
Yeah.
So essentially
And
going
then running
from
on the running
this
down
corner
311.
to bury all that, going that way
Way.
to the corner till they got to the corner of the BLM office. Or, I don't know, however far out that goes.
Also not an electrical engineer, so I don't know why most municipalities are going that way. I don't know if
think,
it's an aesthetic thing, or if it's a,
I think the aesthetics, and I think in the event of certain natural disasters, the underground lines fare better.
or better. Is it Holy
Some
Cross
of
on
which
that
we
side?
don't have those natural disasters in this area, luckily
No.
for us.
That's still XL.
That's still it. So you gotta cross the river to get to Excel, or to Holy Cross?
Yeah, Holy Cross is south of the river.
I guess, I don't know, I thought maybe it should be undergrounded, I don't know.
But your point is still valid. If we're changing our code to ensure that that's happening going forward, then it should be applicable to new development. Whatever happened with the Holiday Inn wasn't,
And that could still
Wasn't on
change
our
with
watch.
whatever develops on our,
Well, the
Above-
code
in front of
asks
the Holiday
for
Inn.
undergrounding, but there are certain cases where the extensions on each side are so extensive that it's
Yeah.
not practical, really not fair to be the burden of that particular
To underground it, then to
property.
take it back up, it's almost causes, I don't know if it causes
But
greater
I don't know all
cause
the
for.
details of that one either.
We could modify the language as suggested. And slight alternative would be that at preliminary plan coming up, that the language could be inserted that the developer would have to provide kind of an engineering cost estimate between undergrounding and leaving it in its current condition, and allow the board to decide once there's actually been an official technical review of that question.
Cost analysis and,
Mhm.
technical review.
I don't know, anybody else even feels that's just a,
So you'll just have one stretch of power lines underground and then pop back up on the
I was
other
gonna
end.
say, so like,
It would
would it
seem to make,
basically end here? You know, BLM's right here.
right, but I mean, we have to not think about just one thing.
No, I'm with you.
When the parcel in front of the Holiday Inn develops, you can make them underground at 15 acres, you can have them underground it.
I agree
You
with the
can work
logic.
towards
Yep.
something in the future. It can't be all about just what's going on right now, or else you
Yeah.
miss.
So
those
what,
opportunities.
so what was the suggestion regarding the, when they get to the point of providing a cost estimate of burying those lines versus leaving them overhead?
It simply is to acknowledge that none of us know what the cost
Cost is, or-
ramifications are of that today.
Yeah.
We could require as part of the preliminary plan review process that they provide a technical review with a cost estimate that then the board could make a decision on at that time.
Got
So
it.
could probably say no.
I mean, Excel could say, no, they don't want them undergrounded, so.
And that's a good
It's a
idea to have.
possibility, yeah.
It's a good idea to have that estimate. I mean, at RVR, we required one thing, and it was coming from me. It was easy to say, yeah, put that power line underneath, and ended up being 3.5 million, and it didn't
Yeah.
really accomplish much. I felt, at the end of the day, I felt bad, believe it or not.
I mean, I think it's an estimate and an engineering feasibility.
Feasibility
study.
Yes.
Because if the power company says no.
Right.
And obviously, we can
Technical
go anyway.
feasibility, cost
And-
analysis.
Excel could say
The-
no.
I
and
mean,
be
that
all
might
done
be,
with.
that's why K exists, who knows?
The pole on the east side at 311 would probably not be able to come down because there's lines crossing the interstate on that pole.
On that pole,
It spans north, south, east, west coming off that pole.
coming off that pole. Okay.
Got it.
Still after the feasibility study, but
Yeah, they'd have to go underground right there and from that point.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna make a motion to approve resolution number.
Well,
I'm going to, I appreciate that we're wanting to move there.
Yeah,
If we're going to make an approval tonight, I would ask for a 5 to 10 minute recess so I can talk with the developers team about making sure the language
Yep.
that has been discussed gets in correctly.
okay.
And then we will walk through that as part of a motion.
Yeah, that's fine. And then do you do that review with them, just with us present here?
Well, I think we would take a short recess and we'll just
Yeah.
hash it out right now.
Got it.
Yeah.
Fair.
The other option is to continue till the next meeting, but I don't know
That
what
that is the other option would
I
be to
think
To
we're-
come back as a clean version,
I think
because this is the second reading.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm game for whatever,
Whatever,
because I'm
yeah.
ready to go.
I like that option better,
What
just so
else?
I have a chance to look at it ahead of time, make sure that everything makes sense.
Does that put the client in a bind?
Yeah, that's,
Sure does.
So as indicated, in order to approve the PUD, which is the next item on the agenda,
Mhm.
we have to have an amended and restated annexation agreement.
Yeah,
We would need to continue both those items to make these modifications to the ADA.
okay.
Or, and again, I mean, that is probably the safer thing to do, or we can take 10 minutes. I can work on doing some interlineations, and when the motion's made, we can read those into the record, and the motion can be to approve the documents subject to those changes.
I think in terms of timeliness that we go that route,
I think.
because
Yeah,
I feel like we're at a point where we can agree on a majority basis to move this forward. And if you guys wanted to take a few minutes to discuss the language that you feel is necessary for the town, then we can read that into the record as part of the motion. I don't see why we'd wait 2 weeks to do that.
so we make a motion for a reset,
Just a 5 to 10 minute recess.
okay, let's do that. In the worst case scenario, after the 5-10 minute recess, if we decide we're not comfortable, then we can
Sure.
extend it, but at least we've given that shot.
Yep.
And recesses are taken at the mayor's discretion.
So, Mr. Mayor, would you like to let us do that?
sure, we can take a 10-minute recess.
Cool.
15
my
minutes
water
is what
bottle's
we
empty.
need, and then we'll re-adjourn and continue the meeting.
I think there is a desire by the applicant to have 2 weeks in which to vet this internally. I think they want to talk with their engineer, who they tried to get on the phone.
He's waiting to be admitted.
Well, yeah. Just so that they can make sure that what's being proposed is functional for them.
Sure.
And again, I'll allow the applicant to make the formal request, but I think the idea is that we would work on formalizing the language that has been discussed at this meeting over the next 2 weeks, and then present this in a final form with everything cleaned up at the next meeting.
So, yeah, exactly as Mike Sawyer was referring to, we'd like to request a continuance on review of the ARADA so that we can kind of vet the discussion, kind of the revised language that we just came up with, make sure that our engineer is comfortable with it. Our attorney was on the phone, but we would like to just make sure everybody's comfortable with that language and then get it back to you in a format where it's all put together on one page and you can kind of move forward at that. I guess that's the request for the continuance. Maybe we'll talk about the PUD guide. I wouldn't mind having a conversation. This is just my discussion about the PUD guide, just because if there are other elements in the PUD guide that we need to also address before the next meeting. But that being said, this is a request for the continuance. If we can still talk about the PUD guide tonight, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, those are separate agenda items, so we can definitely
perfect.
hit on that
Thanks.
too. Just one quick thing while we were talking, or during the break, talking with Trustee Seifert. He remembered back to the BLM building that XL potentially wouldn't let them bury that power line unless they did the whole stretch. So
I
with
think that was when we did that, and if I just remembered sitting here, BLM wanted to bury, and they said, Excel, which had a point, they said either was all or nothing, because they didn't want to have up splice, down splice. So at that time, I'm 100%, I'm pretty sure the BLM did bury conduit though. I'm not positive, but I think they did for future. But it did make sense that Excel said no, they didn't want to have splice, which makes sense, because then if they did, then they skipped, and you do. This way now it's one solid line of wire. I'm pretty positive that was.
Is that easy to ascertain on the ground? Is there, would it be visible? Oh, there's conduit under
If there's
here.
conduit, that's a good question. I mean, I would hope there's some records of.
It's got to be
construction
record or
records.
tracer wire, one or the other.
And if we're gonna do that, then maybe what we do is have some language that they have to, not bury it now, but have conduit there, so that way in case in the future that it's able to be buried whenever that time came.
Yeah, I'd almost rather lean towards
I can check with Samantha with XL
Yeah.
and see what she remembers. And
That's been how many years ago, but I do remember because I was working on that project.
out there marking the end of it or something.
Yeah.
And you could require, even if the undergrounding was not feasible or per XL possible at this time, you could require a preliminary plan the installation of the conduit to accommodate that in the future.
And that's what I was thinking, instead of asking them to do a cost analysis on dropping the power lines, let's just put that money towards putting in conduit. So if XL ever does want to bury it, the conduit's already there. I don't think, I mean, with that information that they wouldn't let him do it, I don't want to see these guys spend 6 hours doing a cost analysis on.
And you can check, Trey, but I'm pretty, and that's been how many years ago, but I do remember that because I was working on that project and which makes sense.
Samantha should have records of it, so I'll reach out to her tomorrow.
Whether I thought they put conduit in, but I can't remember.
So yeah, I guess
Yeah, I agree. Just,
discuss that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to continue the reading of resolution number 16, series 2022 to our September 12th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem not to continue resolution number 16, series 2022 till the September 12th Board of Trustees meeting. Seconded by Trustee Britnall. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
So we will move on to the second reading of ordinance number 13, series 2022, an ordinance of the Town of Silt, Colorado, amending zoning ordinances number 9, series of 2013, and establishing planned unit development zoning for annexed land formerly known as the Divide Creek Center, now commonly known as Reslinda Planned Unit Development. I will turn this over to Attorney Sawyer.
I'm going to turn it over to Planner Chain.
Thank you, I hope. Anyway, this is the second reading for ordinance 13. But your motion you should probably wait on adopting that until resolution for the ARADA in 2 weeks.
We will you'll ultimately, at the end of this conversation, you will continue this for
Yeah.
another 2 weeks.
But let's discuss it. This is a bit more straightforward than the last one, which was pretty far-reaching. Okay, so you've seen the ordinance before, and there was some discussion on, I would just say some minor changes in the PUD guide or the PUD document itself. What you have in the packet, it was a strike-through version, but it got auto-corrected, so Sheila put the strike-through version, so it's much easier to see.
Yep.
But essentially, we looked at some parking changes, which could be significant, but I think I have a solution for that. We have some minor cleanup on unlicensed autos and abandoned autos and things like that, and then just a few housekeeping items. So if you go to that strike-through version, the first comments are on page 3, and that's under the permitted commercial uses in the commercial mixed-use development. Number 5, just unlicensed was added to permitted public institutional uses under automobile parking lots and structures. So it says further limited to passenger cars and light trucks and excluding wrecked, inoperable, and now unlicensed or unsightly vehicles. That's to try to take care of all the possibilities. There's a similar notation on page 4 under the lodging mixed use zone district under item number 2. Same thing, it dealt with automobile parking lots, and the same thing in the event center at the bottom of page 4. And last but not least, on page 6. Also on page 6, we added a section on excluded or forbidden uses in all use areas, and that's related to marijuana land uses, including cultivation, sales, processing, and clubs, defined in Colorado Revised Statutes or the Silt Municipal Code are prohibited. And whatever the town allows and the state allows, that can stay in. The next change is on page 8, parking standards. B, off-street parking, and that's where for residential, for a 2-bedroom unit, the town code basically has 1.5 per unit. I know they've been doing some site planning at 1.5 per unit. The discussion from the board was, hey, 2 per unit. And I've worked with codes that sort of split the difference, and an example is it's 1.5 units, 1.5 spaces for 2-bedroom units that are relatively small. What I've generally seen is like 800 square feet. That's 1.5. You get above that, whether it's 801 or 1,200, you're doing at least 2. And the thought is the bigger units, you probably have more people, you have an extra car. The smaller ones, maybe not. And that's a way to, I think it's acceptable to the development team, and I've seen that work in some of the areas I've worked before. So keep that under your hat for a second and see what else we have here. I put in this, on page 9, I put in this prohibited section, and I was going to take out the other stuff related to parking and unlicensed vehicles, but it was just easier to do the word here or there that Mike ended up crafting. And we also have in this PUD guide, there's also a section which also clarifies that site plan reviews will be approved by the board at a public hearing. And last but not least, the other thing that was brought up was short-term rentals. And when I've talked to the development team, I think it's best to go with what the town has right now. If you have a short-term rental, you're supposed to get a license, and you're going to be paying the lodging tax or whatever other tax you want to. And especially down by the event center, I mean, I'd look at, if I was gonna be an owner of one of those units, I'd probably short-term it. The mixed use, that's probably okay. The only one I can see where you may want to exclude short-term rentals is that multifamily area, but I haven't seen the site plan. I don't know some of those details. It was originally going to be a tax-supported multifamily project, restricted, income restricted. I don't think that's the case now, so I can't comment on that. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Doug or Mitchell to either clarify or comment.
Please, yeah, I don't really have any.
In terms of short-term rentals, as Mark said, if for some reason the town finds in its future that they want to limit short-term rentals, we would certainly comply with that. We'd require all of the owner's residents to apply for short-term rentals to the town per the code and pay the lodging tax. So that's going to be obviously enforceable by the town, but it would certainly be understood by this applicant and hopefully by the future residents of the project that they will have to apply for short-term rentals, get approval from the town, pay the lodging tax. So if that changes by the town, we're not writing it into our PUD guide. So if that changes in the future, then we will have to comply with future town code. So that's kind of our short-term rental approach. And we still support the 1.5 parking spaces per 2-bedroom multifamily dwelling unit. Mark looked at the town of Carbondale's code. I also looked at the town of Carbondale's code to kind of see what the variation on that theme was, and that is, as he said, there are 800 square feet or less that require 1.5 spaces. Greater than 800 square feet require 2 spaces. So that being said, if that's something that's a discussion item here that you'd like to talk about, we can talk about that. We still support the 1.5, but recognize that there may be a threshold in size where a larger unit might require more parking.
You guys put the plans in place to, like, do you guys know how many 2-bedroom over and under 800 square foot units you're gonna have? And if you don't, like, where are you seeing the impact of going from 1.5 to 2?
We actually do on tract 1.
Okay.
So there is a site plan developed for that. There are actually floor plans developed for the units. There's a percentage of them that are 2-bedroom. The parking that was being studied was per the code 1.5 spaces per unit. So
yeah. But I mean, so did you guys run kind of the scenario of if it was 2, what was your impact?
In that case, I talked to Dennis today. He said he thought it was doable to do the variation on a theme, the larger number for something greater than 800 square feet. So we chatted briefly about that today, and he has really done the site planning and headed up that portion of it. So I deferred to him to let me know, and he thought that was he could still attain the parking and the unit count for 2-bedroom units that he was shooting for.
Okay. All right.
I guess the bigger caveat is we don't know for the remainder of the project. The single-family homes are what they are. That's not changing. It's all relates to 2-bedroom multifamily units. So we would just have to consider any change when we came in for site plan review.
I mean, I still think the 2 spaces is needed for a 2-bedroom. I think if a 2-bedroom is 800 square feet and a 2-bedroom is 1,100 square feet, you're gonna have the same amount of people living in it.
Yeah.
It's the same amount of bedrooms. I mean, you might have a bigger bedroom, might have a bigger living room, might have a bigger kitchen, but you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I think the 2 per as well, just because I live in a development that is short parking, and I know all the problems it can cause.
You bet.
And I think even at 2, you're probably gonna have issues, but you're just not gonna have as many.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine with this as presented.
I like 2.
2.
I'm okay with the compromise that Mark mentioned.
Yeah, I am
Okay.
too.
I don't know if Dennis can answer that for us, what the the actual number of extra parking spaces is.
13.
So it's 13 extra parking spaces.
4,000 square feet
For,
of asphalt, yeah.
for how many houses or how many units?
For his mix of units as
So
he
he has,
proposed.
so he has 72 units and he has about 40% that are 2-bedroom units.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that exact math, but that's kind of what he told me. So that 40%, that's the increase in the 13 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, which equates to about 4,000 square feet of asphalt.
And Mr. Mayor, Dennis has raised his hand
If we can
virtually.
unmute Dennis and let him talk to us on this real quick.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, just some clarity about that tract one, the Lincoln Capital, who was the buyer of that property that wanted to do the Chaffa assisted project of 50 units, was only using about less than 2/3 of the site. And Lincoln Capital is no longer involved. So we will be looking at a market rate project with a market ratio of studio 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. It's probably gonna be 80% will be 1 and 2-bedroom. There probably 5 or 6% studio and very few 3-bedroom units, if any. And to reach a compromise on what you all are looking at here, I would agree to 1 parking space for the studio and 1-bedrooms, 1.75 for 2-bedroom and 2 for 3-bedroom. I think that would get some comfort to all parties, and there's always gonna be on-street parking for overflow in these kinds of developments, and we have a road that can accommodate that. So I think, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think it still needs to be 2.
2.
I'm okay with the compromise. I mean, they're enforcing it. It's not gonna be our problem. And so that's why, that's the main reason why I'd be okay with what they feel like they can handle in their units. I'm fine with.
No, it will be our problem. It's still gonna be our police force that's enforcing the extra cars parked on the street. Even though they are gonna maintain the street
Right.
and the sidewalk, we still enforce our parking rules
Right,
on
that's
that,
true.
so. I mean, it's a difference between if 1.75 is gonna be 6 spaces more or 13 spaces more.
For studio, 1 for 1-bedroom, 175 for 2.
Okay.
And 2 for
I'll support 2 parking spaces for 2-bedroom.
I'm fine with 1.75 or the 800 square foot sort of tipping point between 1 and 2.
I'm for 2.
Trustee Seiferd's in it too. Trustee Clausen? 2.
2.
Trustee Brittenall?
I think it's still, I mean, I would be okay with the 1.75, but I prefer the 2, but I would be okay with 1.75.
Yeah, I don't know so much. Yeah, 1.6.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be 2
Yeah.
on that one. Just multifamily parking spaces always become an issue, and I mentioned it last time, I'd like to readdress our code and write that into code so that developers know what we want.
Yep.
Okay. Everything else looks, adding a word here and there, looks fine. Everything else I'm good with.
Same.
Everything good besides the parking spaces?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've gone through, yeah, all of the other language was fine, so, yep.
All right, cool. Do we need to go and do the public hearing, Mike, even though we're gonna continue this?
Who's on the Zoom?
Who's on Zoom? There's Dennis, Chad, Ron Milhorn.
I suppose, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't hurt
Yeah, let's do it.
to open the public
Okay.
hearing
Yeah.
and then close it.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the right way to do it.
The time is now 9:43 PM, and I will open up the public hearing for ordinance number 13, series 2022. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir.
Okay. Do we have any raised hands?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we have nobody from the public to join us in here, so. The time is now 9:44 PM, and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion
So we need a motion to move it to
to
September 12th.
continue, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to, second reading ordinance 13, series 22, to move it to September 12th, 2022.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by trustee Seifert to continue ordinance number 13, series 2022 to the September 12th Board of Trustees meeting, seconded by trustee Clausen. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, I think at the next meeting,
Thanks
we'll
all.
hopefully be able to get this over the hill. All right, the next item on the agenda is resolution number 14, series 2022. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Silt, Colorado to opt out of the Colorado Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program. I will turn this over to Administrator Lehman and Treasurer Tucker.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think we have a slideshow that, I think Sheila can just roll through it here. There it is right there. If you can see that, we'll just stick with that format if that works for you.
That'll work.
So, and I'll just go over the PowerPoint. It's generally a higher level view, and if you'd like to go into a deeper dive afterwards, we can certainly do that. So, next slide is just a quick introduction on what family is. It's the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program that voters approved in 2020. You've got just a plethora of information in your packet. I'm sure you've probably all taken a look at that and maybe have questions, and I'll try to answer those as we go through this or at the end of this. But I'm not going to read every slide, every word on here, and we can go back and pick stuff up if we miss anything. But family is a little bit different from the federal FMLA program in that family provides paid leave based on what an employee makes. FMLA, you might think of as one of those things that doesn't cover organizations of less than 50, and you'd be right, except for governments, and all public employees are covered regardless of the size of their organization. So our employees are covered by FMLA, which basically holds a position open for them if they're out for an extended period. The one thing family does that FMLA doesn't is that it's portable. You can take it with you when you leave one employer and go to another, although I guess you could argue that FMLA stays with you too, because unless you go to a small private company. The premium is 9.9% of an employee's wages. It's split half and half between the employee and the employer. It's got some caps on it. You can read about those there. The maximum benefit's $1,100 a week. For employees who participate. the town will automatically become covered without, if the town does nothing. And the town and the employee premiums would be due beginning January 2023. The decision to opt out is not permanent. The board can reconsider it anytime. However, if you go into the program, you are obligating the town to be in the program for at least 3 years. If you opt out, the only obligation you have is to reconsider every 8 years. And if you wish to continue to opt out, you can do so at that time. Next slide. Ongoing, so I should say, the staff, and mostly Amy and I and our HR contractor and Mike Sawyer all have taken the position that the town should opt out. One of the things that is likely is that these costs will go up. It's my understanding that the proposition allowed charges of up to 1.2%. And I think the state's own calculations came up with 0.9%. But they could raise it to that 1.2% without another vote of the folks. Another reason we would think that the town should opt out is that, the town already offers competitive paid leaves, including holidays, vacation, sick days, and the latter two of those, vacation and sick time, they accrue over a period of time. The town also has an informal and voluntary sick leave bank to assist employees who have exhausted all of their available leaves due to injury or illness, and also long-term disability benefits policy, which I believe kicks in after 12 weeks. And Amy, you might want to correct me if I got that wrong, or anything else for that matter. We have considered approaching the HR subcommittee to formalize the sick leave bank, and I think that's something we can do during this budget season. We plan to do. This is really old information about the survey of municipalities, but it's my understanding that most municipalities, really a vast majority, have opted out. I think one of the things is that there are some facets that probably haven't been totally thought through yet, and there'll be some additional rules and so forth that'll probably come out as the state starts this program and starts understanding what kind of tiger they have by the tail. One of the things that Amy and I have talked a lot about is this idea of supporting our employees who decide to participate on their own. If the board opts out, employees can still participate on their own at a cost of 0.45% of their wages. And so the way the resolution is written, and we'll look at that here in a little bit, it's written so that the town would opt out of both the program, but also about deducting and remitting the employee's share. And after talking about it a little bit, we realized it probably is not that much time of ours to spend to support our employees who decide they'd like to participate. So I think we would recommend that the board change the verbiage in that resolution to support our employees. If they choose to participate, I'd be surprised if anybody, just based on the feedback I've gotten from our employees. I'd be surprised if anyone wants to participate, but we think it would be wise to provide that option for folks who want to. That allows employees to voluntarily opt into the program without having to worry about having to, send a check to the, to the state every quarter. So that would be helpful, I think, to them. Next slide. If the town wants to or decides not to opt out of family, as I mentioned before, you don't have to do anything. You'll automatically be enrolled on January 1st. And what that will do is that not only the town will have to make a contribution, but every employee will have to make these deductions and send those to the state. And that's really a choice that they don't then have, and really regardless whether they think it's the right thing for them or not. So it's not optional if the town becomes a covered employer. That next section, I had written this early, that the town employees they'd obviously retain the option to participate in family, but we were at first sort of recommending that they enroll directly with the state, and we changed that recommendation to say that we would help them. That's what that last little bit is. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, that last bullet point, you might ask what the cost is to the town. If the town participates, it's calculated about $7,500 a year, and is likely, as I mentioned earlier, to go up higher. So the next slide really talks about what the what the actions and what options you have, and the changes in here are that the resolution as presented is it's declining the employee participation, but it also declines administering the collection and remitting of the premium, and I think we're suggesting that the town could be involved in that. So I don't know. Hopefully that's clear, as clear and concise as I could make it. But what questions do you have that Mike Sawyer can answer? Just kidding. Just kidding. I got it.
I have no questions.
I don't have any questions. I would be in favor of approving the resolution to not participate, but still allowing the employee, but helping the employees if they want to, because that gives them the flexibility. But I'm definitely not in favor of not doing anything and then being covered and then making them have to have one more deduction on their paychecks.
I agree.
Yeah, no questions.
Yeah, I agree. Let them decide if they want to do it or not. I do have an unrelated question. Just reading the rest of all the information on here, just out of curiosity, it says, Human Resources Department, and my question is, who is that company, and is that something that the board reviews periodically, or how does that work?
We have a contractor that we've hired, a company called ILG, and they provide for the princely sum of $500 a month. They provide consulting services on an as needed basis. So on something like this, we call them and ask them what they think about it, and they give us their opinion. If we have an employee issue of any kind, we call them and run it by them, and they help us work our way through it if we have questions on how to do it. They have done, at an additional cost, they've done our salary surveys over the last couple of years and helped us kind of retool our wage program. So they've been very, very helpful, and frankly, when you have any one employee issue, they're worth the cost of admission. And I think Mike Sawyer would also testify to that. They really have done a great job for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree to approve the resolution as presented with the condition that the town will administer collection and remitting on the employee's premium to the state if the employee chooses to join themselves.
Public hearing.
Yeah. Why is this a public hearing?
It shouldn't be, we're just adopting a policy.
Policy? Okay.
Should be a.
Action item?
It's a public meeting, it's an action item. You can always choose to take public comment if you so desire.
Okay. This is just, it's listed as a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and do our public hearing, just in case anyone joined us to speak to this agenda item, but,
Well, and one thing I might add, you know, this, the proposition that was voted on and the state's laws recover, or the way it was written, require that our employees are all clued into this and told when the board will be considering this, and they were all invited to participate in this conversation. And we did a special public notice on this related to that, so that everybody would know we were taking this on tonight, or actually 2 weeks ago, and then when we continued it.
okay. Cool. All right, well, the time is 9:59 PM, and I will open up the public hearing for resolution number 14, series 2022. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I have no raised hands.
all right. Anyone in the public like to speak to this agenda item?
The air conditioners say no.
All right, nobody here to speak to it. The time is now 10 o'clock PM, and we will close the public hearing for resolution number 14, series 2022. Open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution 14, Series 2022, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of Town of Silt, Colorado, to opt out of the Colorado Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, while supporting any employees that did choose to opt in on their own with any administrative and collective processes.
I'll second.
Okay.
Did that cover that?
Yes.
We have a motion by trustee Brittenall to approve resolution number 14, series 2022, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Silt, Colorado, to opt out of the Colorado Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, but to support our employees through administrating and collecting dues should the employees choose to enroll themselves. Seconded by trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to continue the meeting past 10 PM.
Second.
We have a motion to continue the meeting past 10 PM by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by trustee Brittenall. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Be nay. You're that tired.
Nay. I know what he meant.
But
Me
we're
too.
almost done.
Yeah, we
That's
are
the
almost
reason why
done,
it's-
so.
It's late.
Next item on the agenda is the July 2022 financial report. I will turn this over to Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to make this quick. 58% of the year has elapsed. We're doing quite well in both sales tax and use tax as we have for the year. We're at 71% for sales tax, about 85% for our use tax. We are right in line for our water, wastewater, irrigation, and our trash service fees. We are doing well in all of our budgeted revenues. We're pretty close with everything except for Silt Housing Authority. Again, it's just they're paying us behind and we're not getting the month's rent in the month. So we see the rent come in the following month. We are below most of our budgeted expenses for all of our funds. We're a little high in our irrigation fund, and that's just with leftover monies for grants that we needed to finish up to complete projects. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
I have no questions.
I don't have
No
anything.
questions.
Got nothing?
Question,
Great job, Amy, thank you.
All right, next up is administrator and staff comments.
I have one quick thing, Mr. Mayor, and that is that I'll be going on vacation on Wednesday for a couple weeks, and we're gonna have Sheila be in charge while I'm gone, although since it's budget season, I'm sure I'll be spending plenty of time talking to Amy and Sheila and Trey and Mike.
I vote no.
About what we need to put together for our next meeting for you all.
All right.
Sounds good.
Any other staff comments? Okay. Updates from the board and board comments. Trustee Hanrahan.
Just a quick thank you for the concert 2 weekends ago and then Heydays this past weekend. Great job, huge turnout. Super excited to see all the people having so much fun in our small town.
Awesome.
And thanks to the staff and volunteers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly what I say. Thanks to the staff, volunteers for the heydays and the concerts, and good job.
What they said.
Okay. Trustee Clausen.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for Heyday. We had an awesome Heyday, and you know, our theme was Community Grows here, and it rang true this weekend because with the Silt Historical Park Pancake Breakfast, we had some new volunteers, you know, that we haven't had before, and they're interested in staying with us and helping, and even for the Heyday committee group, we had a bunch of new volunteers. So, you know, without these newer volunteers, the Heyday event and the Silt Historical Park will fade away if we don't have these newer volunteers. And it was really nice to, you know, as the community grows here. And yeah, definitely wanted to thank town staff, Public Works, for doing everything they did for the park to get ready for it, and even the town clerk was instrumental in the beer booth, which, you know, the profit, you know, is donated to the Silt Historical Park. So, you know, on behalf of the park, we really appreciate what the town does and what the town staff does for the historical park and also for Heydays. And those are my comments.
All right. Trustee Seifert.
No comment, everybody said what I was gonna say.
Cool, just like to say one thing, the path around the park down at 16th Street was completed, and by far, like right off the bat, was busier than I ever thought. There's people on it all the time with their kids on bikes, people walking, moms with strollers, dads with strollers, people with, like, awesome. So I'm really glad that we had that project done, and thanks to the Public Works Department for getting it done quick. You guys did a good job on that. Looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. That's all I got.
And if you wanna know that it's almost exactly a quarter mile if you make a lap around that park.
Really?
We're gonna get signs up at some point, but
That's perfect.
just so you know, it's a quarter mile.
It's great.
Nice. The only thing I've got is just for the record that Trustee Flores joined us at 7:06 p.m.
Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
All
That's
good.
all right.
Glad you're here.
No docket from your pay.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Got a motion by Mayor
Thanks,
Pro Tem
everybody.
to adjourn the
Good
meeting,
night.
seconded by Trustee Flores. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right.